Money doesn't just come from one place. It drips, trickles, flows, and floods into our lives in different ways. Welcome to Drip, Trickle, Flow, Flood, a podcast that explores the power of multiple income streams. We've got merch. That's right. Drip, Trickle, Flow, Flood t-shirts are officially here, and they're as comfy as they are conversation starting. Grab yours at the link in our show notes. All right, everybody. We're really excited today to have Tyler Anderson with us with Whatcom Preps. It's the home for high school sports coverage in Whatcom County. Welcome, Tyler. We're excited to talk to you today.
Hi, how you doing?
Tony Tyler, right?
I've known Tyler for a long time. We met in high school.
Oh,
What is incredible is I saw Tyler. He didn't know what Whatcom Preps was at the time, but Tyler had this passion for high school sports decades ago and was doing the research when we still had a one at the start of our names and laying the foundation for what he has created, which is an incredible local resource and community gathering thing, even though it's all digital.
I want to know about that, Tyler. Can we kick off with that? Tell us a little bit about what Whatcom Preps is.
Yeah, Tony's right. It's got a long history to it without knowing what I wanted to do with it. Even before the internet was invented, I wanted to maybe write a book or do something. I didn't really know how I wanted to get the information out there. And then I was doing all this research. I started writing for the Bellingham Herald for the sports page when I was 20. And so just a few years after I met Tony and was covering local high school sports, got to learn how to write the right way. You can't say that Nooksack Valley won their fourth game in a row. You have to say Nooksack Valley won its fourth game in a row. Think just little simple things like that. You got to write a certain way because it's proper, it's singular, not plural. Like little things like that. So I kind of learned all the little niche things. I wrote at the Herald for about 7 years, but at the same time, I was still doing research, going to the library every weekend, going on the microfilm machines, looking up old games, writing stuff down. And I just kept keeping it and building relationships with coaches and athletic directors. And I just knew I had all this stuff, but I thought maybe I was the only one that would enjoy seeing it or looking at it. And in 2013, I remember being on Facebook and everything was just so negative. Everyone was using it as like a way to vent their frustrations. And I'm not a negative person. I wanted to bring something positive to the community and Facebook. So I created a page called The History of Whatcom County High School Football. And I just put it out there and I put a poll question that just said, which team has the richest history? And I went to bed. I didn't think anyone would care. I woke up and there was, I don't know, maybe a few thousand votes or something. And I was like, oh no, now I really got to do something. People are very interested in this. And I started getting game film from coaches and posting highlights and just doing all sorts of things, making all decade teams, all the while people not knowing who was running the page. I didn't want it to be known who it was. Not that I was a name, but I didn't want people to say, oh, he went to Mount Baker, so he's going to skew towards Mount Baker. I didn't want that preconceived bias to put in there. So I figured if I built it up big enough to where people liked it, then I can reveal who I was. And it's gone smooth sailing since then. 5 years later, the Bellingham Herald stopped reporting on high school sports. And I was really upset about it. I loved it growing up. I loved working there. And I think they were bought out by the Tacoma News Tribune, and they said, hey, just cover college and pro. And they were going to print down there. So there was no real tie to Whatcom County anymore. And I just thought, man, I got to do something because there's such a rich history and following of high school sports in Whatcom County. We're far enough away from Seattle and Vancouver where there's professional sports teams. And I just thought, I just want to do something, even if it's just a little bit. I can't do every sport, but I can try to do something. And I built a website. I had no clue what I was doing. Writing code, I'm reading, watching YouTube videos and all this stuff, not really knowing how to do anything. And then social media became a big thing. Doing a podcast became a big thing to draw attention towards it. And then all of a sudden, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I am covering 90% of the sports. There's a few sports that are really still hard to cover. Now, every day, there's something that people can read about what happened the night before in all the sports and everything. And it's really hard to do, but it's such a passion of mine and it's so fulfilling. And I love seeing all the positive faces out in the community when they see me and they thank me for what I'm doing.
Yeah. So you hit on a couple of very interesting things there. One, newspapers and print media has changed so dramatically. And you saw this problem and you didn't even see it. You weren't looking at it as here's a financial opportunity. You were looking at this is a problem. This is a resource that used to exist that is no longer going to exist anymore. And it's important for community, for these athletes that are working so hard, for just the history and the culture of the county and all those things. And so you solved that problem. The other piece is, and Todd Webb, who writes the Poet comic, was on, and different worlds, but the same, where he said, I just create stuff and I don't always necessarily know where it's going to be. And then sometimes it has a life and sometimes it doesn't. And that's what you were doing. You were just creating, gathering, building, not exactly knowing where it was going, just following this passion. And fast forward to 2026, you're a couple years into this being your full-time job. You were able to leave your other place of work and pour your heart and soul into what you're doing at Whatcom Preps.
Yeah, that's a scary leap to make. I talked to a few other business owners and was trying to do both at the same time. And a lot of possible sponsors were, you got to jump full in because it'll make it that much better. And then that's when the sponsors will start coming. And I didn't want to go ask for sponsors right away because I didn't want people to say, yeah, that sounds good. I'll sign up for a month. And then after a month, they go, I haven't really seen much change. I'm just going to die out. I wanted Whatcom Preps to be a thing that when people said it, people knew what it was. So I wanted to do it for a while before I asked anybody. So I was doing it for no money for about 4.5 years, showing up to games, writing reports, driving all around the county, not making a penny. But what I was doing is I was building relationships with coaches. Possible business owners were seeing me at games all the time and saying, man, this guy doesn't do it for the money. He's doing it because he loves it and we want to back him. And every time a business owner has come to me, it's worked out. And so I'm not a great businessman. I just want to help the community. And so I say, what works for you? This is what's been working for everybody else. What do you think? And you're right. I don't even know if I'm at the trickle part yet, but I feel like I'm trying to get there. I am making a living, but at the same time, there are other news media stuff out there that's covering high school sports. They cover maybe a game or two a week, but they also have paywalls on their websites. And I'm never going to have a paywall. I want grandma and grandpa in Arizona to be able to read about their grandkids. And I want the community just to be able to have full access to everything. And you're so right about you never know kind of where it's going to go, especially with social media. Things can blow up and it gets shared a zillion times. And all of a sudden it's, wow, okay, I was not expecting that. But it's been a lot of fun and you never know what's going to hit and what's not. I just believe in outworking everybody and being at as many games as possible and getting the information out there promptly.
I love your business model, Tyler, because you're a day maker, which is not my term. That's a book if you haven't read it, but I love you. You just said in multiple instances, you're making the day of the grandparent that doesn't live locally who gets to read about their grandchild. You're making the day of the coach who is seeing the recognition of their team. You're making the day of the players who get the recognition. You're making the day of the school. So I love that that's at the core of everything that you do, which I think makes it so special and probably stand out amongst the competitors too, not just because you're not paywall, but also because they can likely feel that the real reason that you're doing this is because you just want to make their day.
Yeah, I love it. I was an athlete in high school, if you want to use that term, and a few times my name was mentioned in the Bellingham Herald. And as a teenage student, seeing somebody else put your name in print really empowers you. And because so many kids that are aged 14 through 18 are at a time in their life where they just don't know about a lot of stuff. And if they see that a stranger recognizes their accomplishments, puts their name in something, boy, that can go a long way for so much. What's the word I'm looking for? But it really empowers them and it really gives them confidence to keep going and working harder. And man, that goes a long way. So I've never forgotten that happened to me over 30 years ago, and it drove me and it wanted me to get better and I wanted it to happen again. And I really feel like that's a really powerful thing. And I have this tool to be able to help kids with this, and it's helped kids get scholarships. There's been universities that have called me and they say, "What do you think about this kid?" Not necessarily on the field, but what kind of student is he? What kind of person is he? Because they'll reach out to anybody and to find out about certain kids. And I've helped a lot of kids get looks at colleges, and that makes me feel so great as well. So it's a full circle thing. It keeps bouncing back and forth. And I love this community. I don't think I could do this in a different county. I grew up here. I love it. And it's a great way to give back.
Yeah, and Melissa, you're right as the day maker, and there is the grandparents and all this, but the kids just love it. It's one of these things where they just, every week they're seeing, am I up there do I have the most blocks in volleyball, or do I have the most points in basketball, or the most yards in football, and all these different things. And the kids just love it. Like when the Herald was doing it, they are just clamoring now to be on Whatcom Preps. And it really does matter. And I had this pretty sweet scene. I was at a basketball game, and the football season and basketball season overlaps a little bit.
Yep.
And there was a kid that in addition to just like the stats on the field, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Tyler, but so in addition to the stats that go up, there's these highlight plays. And if a kid, and then so Tyler will put up a few of the best highlights from the week for like football, and then everybody will go on and vote. And if the person wins, they get a flat of Gatorade from one of the sponsors. And this kid at Baker this year he was getting a lot of flats of Gatorade. He was having quite the exciting season. And so I don't know if he was tired of Gatorade, knowing the family. This is probably just par for the course, but he gets his flat of Gatorade that Tyler had dropped off for him, and he takes his picture with it. And then he goes into the stands, and all these kids are over, and he just starts handing out Gatorades to all of his buddies and his brother's buddies. And it was a really great scene that you see all the stats online, you get to see the highlights, but then the reach of this just keeps going and going. And it does have a big impact on the community. And I don't know if there's things like this in other communities, maybe Tyler, but Whatcom County is fortunate to have a resource like this. It's very unique.
It is really unique. I talked to Blake Van Dalen about this. He's the Linden head football coach. And a few years ago, I want to say 2021, excuse me, they won the state championship, and he was named the state's coach of the year. So he got to go to the Pro Bowl with each coach of the year from each state. So there's these 50 coaches, and they're all talking from all around the United States. And he was bringing up Whatcom Preps, and he was bringing up the top 100 list, which is a list I do at the end of the year for where I rank all the football players in the county. And they all said to him, "Wow, you must have had a lot of guys up there. Your quarterback was probably number one." And he said, actually, he was ranked in the 50s. And the other coaches were like, "He must not know what he's talking about." And Coach Van Dalen says, "No, he knows exactly what he's talking about. He was not one of our best players. We're a full team." And a lot of the coaches looked around and said, "Man, that's cool what he's doing." And so it sounded like it is not super common around the county. People love lists. I don't necessarily like making the lists, but it's a good way to get clicks and drive up views and all that stuff. And there's some negativity that comes along with it. You're not going to make everybody happy, but every year I'm always like, this is the last year I'm making a list. But And then I always come back and make a new one. But it is cool that that reach goes out. Even this afternoon, I'm going to go walk into another school with a case of Gatorade. Every time I do, all the kids get super excited. They're like, "Oh, we won!" And so it's becoming a thing now to where it brings excitement to lots of different schools. I'm glad that I've gone out to almost every school to bring a case. It's really cool, and it's a fun thing to be able to have me do it, for me to actually deliver it myself. I'm not great with crowds and stuff like that, but I've been told many times, like, if you show face, if you go out there, if you show that you're the one doing it, it goes a long way. So that does make me feel good.
So let's talk about the different ways you have monetized this. And you have a few different ways you've monetized this platform, and you have your website. Seems like the social media is probably where you get the most interaction, Facebook and Instagram. So how have you designed this to generate income?
It started out with just kind of looking for sponsors. And I was thinking about like different levels, maybe like a platinum level, gold level, silver level, and different things, because everyone can afford different amounts. And that's just been reaching out to companies, or sometimes when a company reaches out to me, and just signing up for whatever they can do. Sometimes they can do a month, sometimes they can do a season, sometimes they're just like, hey, just find me every year and I'll just write you a check for a year. It's funny how some business are, sometimes they just write me a check and give it to me and say, just do whatever you want, which is always funny because I'm trying to find ways to get them involved, whether it's talk about them on the podcast or put their ad right on the, like a static ad right on the front page. And so that's been the main thing for the last few years. And every year it's gone up. I haven't done my taxes yet for the 2025 year, but I would imagine I keep making more and more money every year. I'm going to get past that poverty line at some point, but I know it's going to happen because it's been going. The other way is it just started happening last year where I looked into how to make money on Instagram and Facebook just through social media, just through people sharing or liking or commenting, or which seems silly, but boy, it ended up really working. So I don't really know how all that works as far as like what numbers I need to reach to bring amount X amount of dollars, but it's every month or so I get an email that says Facebook has paid you X amount of dollars, and I was like, oh great. And so that's been good too. It drives me again to do more on Facebook, and the more people that are out there sharing things and commenting and liking and stuff like that, it helps me even more. And there's even like a little subscription based thing on Facebook where people pay $1 a month, $1 a month for a whole month. And all it is, you subscribe to the Facebook page. And so whenever I post something, you get a notification. Hey, you're the first one to know about it. And I think I get like maybe 85 cents of that or something like that. And then there's another way that I thought of a few years ago that's pretty interesting. And they're called legacy supporters. And so if someone wants to be a legacy supporter, what it is, it's a lot of former athletes where it's $5 a month. And a lot of times they just give me like $60 a year, which is fine. But what it is, I create a Wikipedia page basically of their career, and I call it a Whatcompedia page. And or you can support somebody else. If you had a sibling or a friend that had a big career in high school sports, you can pay the $5 a month for a page of that person. And so there's about, I don't know, 20 of those right now. And there's about 30 in the queue. I just don't have time to create them. I try and do those in the summer. And there's a lot of people that just donate. A lot of people sign up for monthly donations, and a lot of people just do one randomly here and there. And you put all that together, and I can buy groceries. It's great.
Please tell me you have a Gatorade sponsorship, Tyler.
I do.
Okay. Like
Okay.
that must be the thing.
Yeah, Walton Beverage has been fantastic. It's been a great partnership.
Good. I also think of that. I don't know if you've ever seen that platform called Buy Me a Coffee, which is just another way for people to donate because they just appreciate your work. So it's almost like you could do a Buy Me a Gatorade.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I like that. There are so many ways, and every once in a while, there'll be little things where someone will just walk up to me and just give me cash at a game. Even at a lot of games, I will, they'll say, "Hey, come here, have a hot dog or something," because they know I'm really busy and running around and I probably haven't eaten yet that day. And so it's just little things like that. It's amazing. I remember a coach a few years ago that said, "Hey, are you going to go down to state for basketball this year?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so. I think I'd be able to do it." And he said, "Great. When you book your hotel, send me the bill." And it's just little things like that. And it's the community that is, and this was an assistant coach. This wasn't even, this is just people acknowledging what I'm doing. And sometimes some people tell me, "Oh, I think that they tell me, I think you're doing too much for too little. Like you're getting taken advantage of." And I just say, "No, I'm going to keep being who I am, because just being a good person pays off in the long run, where little things like that can happen, where I'll get this large donation out of nowhere and just little things." And boy, it's so fulfilling. And I love that I'm able to do this. And Tony said earlier, this is something that I've always wanted to do my entire life. And I can't believe I'm actually getting to do it. It's incredible.
It's interesting. So you have this, you're bringing all these people together in this very interesting way, because everybody's meeting in real life. They're doing all these sports are happening in real life. And you're there taking the pictures. Everybody sees you because you don't wear pants and you have brightly colored, you have quite the style about you, Tyler. And so everybody knows when Tyler's in the room, even though he says hi and whenever he's focused on what he's doing. And
Wait, he does wear pants.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Let's just correct that. We're talking about high school.
He wears shorts.
Okay, he wears shorts.
Tyler wears brightly colored shorts. So he has that. And so everybody's then reliving this online. And even if you're not from Whatcom County and you're listening to this, if you just go and check it out, if you're into high school sports on any level, at this point, he's covering, like he said, 90% of them, boys, girls, he's covering all the different things. And you can see highlights and just see what's going on. But also, I was writing an article about a high school athlete, and I was like, oh my gosh, you do the interview and you get some stuff, and they're trying to add a little meat to the piece. And I go, "Tyler, do you have any stats on this kid?" Within, I don't know, minutes, he sends me a link to their page with all of the stats. And it was just like, what an unbelievable resource and I'm probably the rare person that needs that, but it does exist. It does live. And then I even find there's these people that I know locally that I maybe don't see for years or whatever. And the next thing I'm like, oh my gosh, that's their kid. And you almost get to kind of see what other families are up to. And some of mine even know they had kids and they have high schoolers. Yeah. So it is a very interesting thing. And I love that you have gotten creative on how to monetize this. And it's nice to hear that people are being generous. And I hope that there is a bit of a snowball for you on this, that people do appreciate it, and that your income does keep going up, because I see that you're now trying to get other people out, being able to take pictures so that you can cover more stuff, and you can only be so many places and only have so much time.
Yeah, it is cool about the thing, like you were talking about. When I started really, it was probably like 1992 was probably when I started really digging in and researching and taking stats and stuff like that and keeping them on an old chunky Macintosh computer and on the original spreadsheet and everything, and trying to do all the stuff and kind of keep everything. And then I thought I would just do it up until I graduated. And all of a sudden I start making friends that are younger than me. Thanks, Tony. And so I recognize those people. So I want to keep their stats too. And I want to do it for all the schools. And then you just keep going, because then there's siblings and you know them. And then you're right. All of a sudden now it's the kids of those. And then that's when I started going to the Herald or to the library and started going backwards before 1992 and look at old stuff so I could find out the parents of the kids that we grew up, all that stuff. And it's amazing how the generations are linked. And it is cool going to these games and you look up in the stands, and we were at that doubleheader a few weeks ago, Mount Baker was hosting Squalicum boys and girls basketball. And you look out on the floor in the girls' game, and there's a Perez and Seca play, and their dads played at Mount Baker. And it's so cool because the dads are in the crowd and they're sitting in the stands at the old gym that they used to play at. And it's just, I don't know. I love all that stuff. I'm always trying to tie the history in, try to keep records. And it's really fun. I wish it would just be a reference page. That's what I love to do. Like, I would love it if you're at a track meet and you see someone pole vault 15 feet and you go, my goodness, is that a record? And they can go right to Whatcom Preps and find out. Like that's my kind of what my dream was. But I realized that writing articles and stuff like that is a way to bring in the parents and stuff. And you really realize that Facebook is where the parents are, Instagram is where the kids are. And man, it's just amazing how it all ties in. I'm just super lucky. Anybody could have done this. I really feel I'm glad that I kind of saw how things were changing. And I had a little bit of a vendetta against the Bellingham Herald. If I could tell a short story really quickly, because I did work there for
We
a
love
while.
a vendetta.
Okay. I worked there for a while, and then a new editor came in and he didn't really see my value, which is fine. I didn't have a journalism degree or anything. I was just the snot-nosed kid that was really passionate and would do anything to write a story in the Herald. And so he got rid of me, which is totally fine. And then years later, when I was thinking about starting this history of Whatcom County high school football, I called him up and I said, hey, do you have old rosters laying around, old pictures, anything? He's like, no, we got rid of all that stuff, which I knew was a lie because I knew where they were kept. And I was like, okay, fine. So then my idea was, I'm going to be better than them. And I realized that they were starting to use my stats and they weren't giving me credit. So I thought, what's a way to catch them I didn't really want to like bust them. I just wanted to see. So I talked to a coach and a player and I said, hey, I'm going to put in false stats on my site just to see if they use it. And then I'm going to take it down and put in the right stats. I'm just letting you know so the parents don't freak out. No, my kid did that, not this kid. I went through all that. And because I'd heard about this map maker back in like the 1300s that he was creating maps. He was going around the world. He was creating maps. And this other person was doing the same thing, but it was always like a week later. So it was like, he's just taking my stuff. So I thought, okay, I'll do this. I'll say that the quarterback went out, backup went in and led them on the final drive or something like that. And yeah, they used it. They on their big write-up the next week, like for the pregame was, and if the quarterback's not healthy, no worries, because the backup went 6 for 7 for 82 yards last week. And I just thought, okay, now I know. And I never said anything to them. I said some things to some other people and they went off on them. And so they got a lot of crap for that. But I was always like, I'm going to outwork them. If they have a staff, it's just me. And then all of a sudden, like a year later, they stopped covering high school sports. And I know it wasn't me that did it, but it made me feel really good and feel like hard work should be seen as what it is, which is weird because I loved the Herald growing up. So it was and it's too bad it is what it is now as far as high school sports go. But I always feel like the hard work will come to life. And that's what I was trying.
I love this story of entrapment and karmic revenge. This is right up my alley.
Yeah, you just inspired a script for Melissa here.
Yeah.
It feels like it could be a movie. Like, it's just one of those stories that is like so real, right? Who doesn't want to have that happen?
Yeah, I'd never heard that story before, Tyler. And so a couple of things. One, you said anybody could have done this. I'm just going to strongly disagree.
Yeah, same here.
This is a mountain of work that you have done. And without your passion and your unique brain, I don't think that this would have happened. The other thing is you said you started doing this in 1992. You were a freshman in high school in 1992. Is that true?
I was in 8th grade.
8th grader.
Yeah.
So
I was the ball boy on the football team, and the coach had asked if I could total stats for him. And that's how it started.
okay, so all of you parents out there that your kid has some harebrained idea or some some interest that you don't think has value or seems maybe even a little ridiculous, use Tyler as an example that you just never know where things are going to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's incredible. Not many people can say what I wanted to do in eighth grade is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I never thought it would be. I thought, like I said, I thought I would write a book or something. That's was my idea. Jim Carberry had written a few books. He was the editor at the Bellingham Herald, and he left before I got there. And he does Whatcom Hoops now. And I remember calling him up on a Sunday, just a Sunday afternoon, looking his name up in the phone book and calling him. And we talked for 2 hours. He was super gracious. He said, if you want to write a book, don't do it for the money. Do it because you love it. And we talked
Amen.
about, yeah. We talked about games that, the past and stuff like that. I was probably 13, 14 years old when I called him, and he gave me like at least an hour on the phone. And I never met him in person till about 6 years ago, where he took me out to breakfast. I showed up with his book and he autographed it for me. And I had that book since I was a kid. And it was just things like that. The community is so amazing. And yeah, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I know Bill Walton always used to say that, but I feel that way too.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Tyler. I love learning about your website, and we'll make sure that we link to it as well in our show notes so everyone can check it out. Whether you're in Whatcom or out of Whatcom, you can check out what Tyler is up to. And with that said, if you enjoyed this episode of Drip Trickle Flow Flood, please rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll see you next time on the pod. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.